People who has experienced sleep paralysis, what's it like? I've only had a sleep paralysis incident once, thankfully, and it was terrifying. At the time, I had a closet with no door that was full of junk in the opposite corner of the room from my bed. There's no way anyone could fit in there. I'm laying on my back, almost asleep when I feel this weird sensation, like electricity in my entire body. I try to roll over, but I can't move, so I start to panic. Then I open my eyes. First thing I see is the closet, with a bony white hand in its frame. Slowly, a woman in a white gown sort of floats out. Her eyes were dark and sunken in, and she stared directly at me. After a few minutes, she started drifting toward me, sort of floating. She opened her mouth as well. Almost normal at first, but as she inched toward me, it grew unnaturally wider. With each passing second, her cheeks began to tear as that hole grew. And that sensation intensified. I couldn't do anything but watch, and I can't describe how painfully slow it was. It felt like hours passing in nothing but terror until I started to feel her weight on top of me, compressing my chest. Her nails dug into me and it felt like fire. Then, finally, her face was close to mine, almost nose to nose, with her gaping maw wide open enough to swallow my entire head. And then I passed out. Maybe from fear or exhaustion, but I woke up in a puddle of sweat. I don't really believe in the paranormal, but I salted the flea out of my room the next day. That was about 6 years ago now, and it hasn't happened since. Get it every time I'm seriously ill with anything that gives me a massively high fever. Always the same thing. Will be lying on bed, usually on my side, but sometimes on my back, and I will feel a cat jump up on my bed where my feet are. If I can look down, I can always see that it is pure black, like a shadow come to life, and sort of smoky like edged with heat vision like a mirage. It also has glowing, all red eyes. It will walk up my bed, or sometimes up on me, and sit looking me in the face. Eventually, it will start growling and hissing, and eventually will try to claw at me. Every time it does, I end up being able to move and I hit it, but it just dissipates into like this smoke sand whirly storm thing and disappears. I'm 39 meters and can remember this happening from as young as 5 or 6. I have sleep paralysis about 4 times a year with varying levels of terror associated with it. For most, I just know I cannot move, and the hallucination is generally limited to the feeling of restriction. I usually am thinking I need to scream because of whatever thing, and I can't. I finally make a noise, and it comes out not my own, guttural and muted. I am hopeful this is not a noise people actually hear because it is freaky to me. I cannot imagine what it is like for others. At various times, a visual hallucination accompanies. This can range from a giant cat on my chest or someone in the corner of my room. The someone is usually darker than the dark, the shape is recognizable as a human shape, but I cannot see anything else. What I am not capturing in this description is the terror of it all. Now, I understand what it is, and I can usually recover and go back to sleep, but there is a feeling that doesn't leave me for at least a day or two associated with it. I had sleep paralysis for about 4 years. It was terrifying. I'd be awake, but I couldn't move even to turn on the lamp that was right next to my bed. If I wasn't seeing things, I was hearing them and sometimes, even feeling them. One night, I was laying in bed trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden, there is a weird feeling in my spine, and again, I couldn't do anything but breathe. I heard what sounded like wings of a bird or bat flapping around the room. I felt the wind that seemed to be created by this flapping sound. My door and windows were locked and there was nothing in the room when I turned out the lights. A few minutes go by and there is no more of the flapping sound, but this time, it felt like someone or something came up and sat on my chest with all their weight. I could feel the pressure all through my lungs and heart and ribs, and a gradual lifting of pressure as it felt like whatever it was stood up. I couldn't open my eyes. It still gives me chills to think about. And it only ever happened at that one house I used to live in. Didn't happen before and didn't happen after. Just those 4 years I was living there. And only in that room. I know it sounds like bull, but I'm being 100% serious. I haven't thought about this in years, but I used to have sleep paralysis and had a demon too. It started when I was around 10. Right after my parents divorced, I moved and lived with my mom in a new house, which to this day, I think is haunted. The first night I slept there, I woke up and couldn't move, but didn't see anything. I was still terrified though, and kept trying to scream until I really did, and my mom came running in and just held me. She said it was a dream, and I mostly believed that too, so I didn't think much of it. The next time it happened, it was about a week to 3 weeks later, I don't know. But this time, I thought I saw something in the corner of my room, just a tall shadowy thing, and I thought it wasn't anything until I thought I saw it move. It looked like it took a step towards me. I tried to hide under my blanket, but I couldn't move, and a terror like nothing I had felt before came on me. This feeling of dread that I couldn't do anything. When I could finally move, I hid under my blanket for a long time and eventually fell asleep. I told my mom about it, but she still thought I was just dreaming these because of the stress of the divorce. The next night, it happened again. I woke up and tried to move into a better position, but I couldn't. I was terrified because at that point, I noticed a figure again. The feeling of dread came back, and the thing took a step, just like last night, but then it took another. Right after that, I screamed. My mom came running, and when I told her what happened, she still thought it was a normal dream from stress. My mom let me sleep with her that night, and I slept fine with mom next to me. After that, I didn't have anything happen for the next few weeks. But one night, it happened again, and when I saw it, it was much closer. Instead of being in the corner, the thing was in the center of the room. It looked clearer now, and it had a humanoid shape, but was impossibly thin and had what looked like a tangle of tentacles instead of legs. It seemed to be mumbling something over and over again, and I saw it slowly moving closer and closer to me, repeating what it was saying faster and faster over and over, and right as it was about to reach me, I screamed and threw my blanket over me. My mom came running in, and I told her what happened, so I slept in her bed that night. In the morning, mom said she set up an appointment for me for the next day with a therapist. Mom let me sleep with her that night too, but that night, I woke up with paralysis again. I was terrified enough about not being able to move, but then I noticed that there seemed to be something over mom. It looked almost like ropes of shadow, and then I saw the thing standing over mom, and it was mumbling the same thing louder this time, and clearer now. It sounded like it was saying, "Need to do it, need to do it, need to do it," over and over again. I saw 2 more tentacles rise up next to it, and the thing leaned over me with the tentacles slowly dragging up my body. I was terrified, and this was the most terrifying thing I had ever had happen to me. I was trying to scream, but I couldn't move, and the thing's face was right over mine. Its face was unclear, and looking at it was like looking into a deep hole, with its features just barely visible. All I could see was its crimson eyes glowing down at me, and pointy white teeth in a smile. I finally made a noise, a faint whimper that was enough to wake mom. I saw it retreat, and its tentacles slithered off of my mom. Mom woke up and saw me white with fear, shaking and crying, and hugged me, knowing I had probably had another bad dream. I finally stopped crying and told her what happened, so she stayed up with me for the rest of the night and cuddled and talked with me. The next morning, she took me to the appointment, and the therapist said sleep paralysis was common with stress, and over time it would stop. I refused to believe that the thing wasn't real and stayed at our old house with my dad for months and didn't see anything, so I stayed there until I moved out years later. I would visit the house, but I never slept there again. I've had it once. It made me afraid to sleep for weeks. I'd lie in bed with my eyes closed and I wouldn't open them no matter what. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't even move my eyes and was forced to stare at this entity standing at the edge of my bed, on my side, by my feet. He was about 6 feet tall, completely black with one of those extra-large cult-like hoods on. Glowing red eyes were the only feature I could see. He was just staring at me, and I was stuck staring back. He never moved or talked. After what felt like a minute or two, I must have closed my eyes and fallen back asleep because I woke up an hour or so later, absolutely terrified. Even more strange than that was the time I encountered a sleep paralysis demon while on mescaline, while totally awake. I was somewhere near my peak and felt like there was someone in the room next to mine. I was too freaked to go see if it was really there. So instead, I decided to draw a picture to show my friend what my delusional butt was feeling is in the next room. After my trip, I didn't think anything of it, but held onto the drawing as a memento of my first trip. About 6 years later, I had my first sleep paralysis experience, the one I just mentioned. And while researching sleep paralysis demons, I saw a pic of a commonly seen demon, known as the Hat Man. It was the fleabing thing I drew. Totally blew my mind, and I still don't understand how the mescaline tapped into the part of my mind that triggers sleep paralysis. If anyone knows the connection between the two, please let me know. I would show the drawing, but sadly, I lost it in my last move. I've had 3 sleep paralysis experiences in my life. The first being when I was 6 years old. Before the sleep paralysis started, there was a specific dream I had. I was visiting a birdcage-shaped house that was built using neoclassical architecture. Imagine the White House but just a circle and a dome roof. Anyway, essentially in the dream, it seemed like I was just there to visit and spent a night there. I woke up at night in the dream and walked up some steps to a room where I knocked on a door. I expected the door to open if I just kept knocking, however, something on the other side knocked back. The harder I knocked, the harder it knocked back, and once it opened, I saw what was probably the scariest demon thing I could imagine at the time, and I awoke. Once I woke up though, I was completely unable to move except for my eyes and couldn't even open my mouth to speak. I saw hands coming down from the ceiling and the same demon in the corner of my room. I tried screaming for my parents and wanted to lunge myself out of the bed, past the demon, and run as far as I could so bad, but didn't have the motor ability to do so and was just trapped there. After what felt like maybe 5 minutes, though it was probably only 30 seconds, I woke up and ran to my parents' room. Second time was very odd because it was 10 years later and I had the same dream. Only it was more like I was revisiting this place of my nightmares in the dream. I remember walking up to that same door that caused me such terror and knocking on it as a joke, but nothing happened. I went inside the room and it was a regular room with nothing creepy about it, only when I left, I woke up again and was completely frozen. This time, there was no visual experience, only auditory. I remember being really fixated on my door because it felt as if something really wanted to get in. I felt and heard a gush of air, and it was like I was in a hurricane in my room. Yet there was a weird feeling of static too. I woke up and that was that. Third time there, I don't really remember if there was a dream beforehand. I just woke up on my side facing the wall, and I heard a woman's voice saying, "Die for me," directly behind me. This time, tired of my previous experiences, I just tried to fight it and managed to actually get my mouth to open, but alas, no sound could escape me. That's pretty much it though. It's not fun, and the more it's happened to me, the less scared and more annoyed I get. Hopefully it never happens again, but I guess I'll see.